So what if your boss cut up a corpse and is serving it to your neighbors in an empanada? The important thing is not to go to pieces when that happens. I mean, look at that pear. The oranges are nice too.
I searched for donut flavors and all it came back with was higher stories and some sort of pillow to help with hemorrhoids.
In our new pharmacy, I felt like a foreigner. There was a big Lebowski dude fast asleep in the corner. And there's a line that fathers of a certain generation like to use. Worked fine for me. Sort of implying that it's your fault that the router burst into flames.
This is the Snaggletooth Rock and Roll Podcast.
I was just, admiring our new air fryer. And they have like a little quick guide right on it.
Yeah.
It's got a picture of like the standard like French fry McDonald box. And it's got a temperature and a little snowflake. So I'm like, oh, that's for frozen fries. And they got one that's just the fries without the snowflake. That's for regular, hand cut fries. And then they've got fish and, picture of the typical fish that you drew in first grade and everything. Chicken, what temperature to cook that at. And the very last thing, they have something that looks like a muffin. Who the hell is making muffins in their air fryer?
Well, before I forget, this week's sponsor is Lame Excuse Soda. Don't bother with it, okay?
Just let it wash over you.
Exactly. Still refreshes the palate. So.
Oh, it's been cold here. We've gotten double whammy of snow this week.
I'm so over this cold snap. My brother and I were on the phone last night for 4 hours arguing over Metallica's live album, Live Shit Binge and Purge, whether the Seattle show is better than the Mexico City show. This is what I do with my time, people. Yeah. Sad but true. So
I see what you did there.
how do you like that? I'm more a Seattle man. But anyway, I don't know if women have this, but men, I've noticed we have a thing, I would call it power tool envy. Okay. This applies to men like me that are just handy enough to be dangerous. If we see like guys, construction workers that are like doing drywall or paint or something, and we have to stop and admire the equipment. Like I'll say to myself something like, wow, 3-position, 14-inch and Milwaukee. Now that's a miter saw. A lot better than my piece of shit. This is what men think about. DeWalt makes air compressors. We're also fascinated by the guys that do drywall or paint or something like that professionally, because it has to be done so quickly that they make their own specialized tools. Fascinating. It's like, whoa, that guy's got a mannequin hand attached to a broom handle. How does that thing work? A squeaky dog toy attached to a garden hose? What kind of witchery is this? Like Stace will be trying to talk to me 2 hours later, and I'm sitting there trying to draw out how he's using the mannequin hand thing on scrap paper.
There's always construction around where I work. They're constantly putting in new stuff and guys doing drywall and painting. But the thing that fascinated me was the guy who was up on these metal, they almost look like prosthetic legs that he snapped on.
Oh, the stilts thing.
They had to be 2 feet high each. And he's just walking around painting up high. I mean, there was no up and down the ladder for this guy.
Yeah, that's for schmucks like me.
With my luck, I'd forget I was wearing them, step in a crack, and just, be one of those moments for America's Funniest Home Videos.
Is the equivalent for women for this watching those like makeup regimen videos? Because I know you get a lot of those on your Instagram feed.
I watch them, but I actually get reverse envy when I watch all the layers and layers of crap that they use.
Pity is reverse envy. Yeah.
48 products that apparently you need to go like this with before you put on your face. You always have to dangle the product.
26-minute application.
I could do my makeup in real time, I think. And they have to use high-speed photography while they blend. It's like low lights, highlights, car wax. They apply a color palette bigger than Bob Ross.
Yeah.
They use 9 brushes, 3 blenders. And I don't mean like a blender. A blender's little.
So sponge. Even with the sped up parts, it's still like half an hour long?
Yeah, small sander, I'm pretty sure they do a little happy tree eyeliner. But, I timed myself. I can do my makeup in 4 minutes without rushing. It's not that much there. But I love the algorithm because it thinks that I like wig ads, but I just watch them in abject horror, thinking about how fake they look. And
When you
also,
showed me that was attached to the hat, that
oh
was
my
ridiculous.
God,
Yeah.
I contemplate what would happen if they got pushed in a pool. I mean, the one like you just mentioned with the ski cap, I watched it repeatedly because it was just so stupid looking. And they had this Asian girl donning a knit cap with long blonde tresses. I mean, what could look more natural? I mean, maybe they could sell me one with an afro. I mean, and it's acting like, you would save the day if you were having a bared hair day by throwing one of these on and going to the store while everybody's looking at her
We're not
face.
fooled. No,
No.
no. But I mean, getting back to the male mindset, I think that once men go white collar,
Right.
we will always be curious about blue collar. Uh, a video about Italian marble mining, I'll watch that for half an hour. A show about a guy that makes roofing shingles out of tree stumps, holy shit, cancel my appointments. But it does not go the other way. You are not going to have the guy that pours the concrete going, now look at that Excel formula. He used sum if. He deleted column L so that it would fit on one sheet. What an artisan. You're not going to get that. Now I'm not like super brand loyal, but I will only buy Milwaukee or DeWalt tools, power tools. And it's totally because my father was such a cheapskate growing up, and his crappy made in Vietnam Ryobi shit was always breaking down whenever I tried to use it. And there's a line that fathers of a certain generation like to use. Worked fine for me. Sort of implying that it's your fault that the router burst into flames. Yeah, clearly you strong-armed it into self-destruction, I was thinking about, just speaking of brand loyalty, I really don't give a shit most of the time. I mean, I don't have to have Crest. I can slum it with Colgate. If I can get an appointment with Dr. Scholes, Dr. Knockoff will do fine. Mr. Clean, Mr. Semi-Clean, Mr. Partly Dirty, whatever. Who gives a shit? But I do find that I am kind of hooked on Google products.
We are a Google household.
Yeah.
Don't wake it up.
I won't. But especially Google Chrome as a browser compared to that Microsoft Edge crap. Microsoft Edge fonts come through weird. Nothing's formatted properly. There's ads popping up in strange places. Tons of clickbait, ugly splotchy leg pictures that look like they're from his crime scene photos. Caption, how to get rid of excessive swelling. Ugh. Totally gross. Crack is whack, and so is Microsoft Edge.
Agreed.
But this is kind of interesting. When I fired up the new laptop and I was installing all the Microsoft shit, I went to go download Chrome, and I got this weird pop-up from Microsoft that actually said, there is no need to download any other browsers.
So
Microsoft Edge has all the capabilities you need.
So
I'm like, fuck you, Bill Gates. I'm gonna.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
Yeah,
it's
that didn't happen with any other app. It was only that one. There is no need to download another app. Yeah, crazy. It would be like the cashier at Home Depot saying, I heard you were going to stop at another store for laundry detergent. We have an entire aisle of overpriced gallon-sized janitorial products perfect for your needs right on aisle 7. Not going to happen.
Yeah, I recently installed Bard.
I'm afraid to.
I did. It's supposed to be an AI search engine that is Google based, but it always wants to give me this disclaimer like, this is experimental. I mean, aren't they all kind of? I guess if it screws up and gives you crappy searches, Google wipes its hands of it, and it's crappy AI intel. I searched for donut flavors, and all it came back with was tire stories and some sort of pillow to help with hemorrhoids.
Okay. You want to talk about our feature interview, babe?
Our feature interview this week is with the beautiful and talented Sofia Frasz of the Gothic symphonic metal band Exiled Hope. We have a great discussion about her amazing music and her pursuit of her law degree. She provides some great legal advice to bands and musicians on how to protect their music and prevent issues down the road. Plus, we get into how much fun it is to turn down invitations to parties. Stay tuned for that.
Okay, let's play a song. This is Exiled Hope with Over For You. Okay, let's talk about Patreon. The site is patreon.com/Snaggletooth podcasts. And boy, did we have some good stuff uploaded yesterday.
We did. My daughter recently went to Bali, where she brought us back this wild Copic luwak. We just call it cat poop coffee
Yep.
because basically they have fed the beans, the coffee beans, to civets, which are kind of the medium-sized cats, wild, and then they have to wait till the cat poops out the beans, and then they
Roast
collect them and roast them. And
So if you head over to our Patreon for $6.66 a month, you can see us brew, consume, and react to cat poop coffee. Did we like it? Did we hate it? Was there projectile vomiting?
did we go to the emergency room?
You'll just have to log in and see. There's tons of content over there that you can't get anywhere else. Tons of music reviews, workout tips, Stacy's recipes, and we really need your patronage because we spend a lot of money on computers and technology stuff to make the show better for you. So please head over to patreon.com/Snaggletooth podcast and say hello. Same with Instagram and Facebook, and make sure you subscribe to this channel. Tell a friend about us. You know you love us.
And yeah, don't keep us to yourself. And in supporting us, you also help support the artists that we feature here, because we're always going to shows and getting shirts and whatever else.
Whatever
So
else, yeah.
you're supporting great music.
All right, this next bit is called our Anti-Griselda. Remember that song? We watched this true crime show. We watch true crime shows all the time, but this one was about the son of Griselda Blanco. And for those of you who don't know who that is, she was a notorious cocaine lord from Colombia. She was famous for orchestrating murders with enemies throughout the 70s and 80s. It's told from the perspective of her incredibly naive son, who assumed every mom carried a 38 in her purse and constantly had bodyguards at all times, let her kids play with stacks of $100 bills from the closet. Despite all the false names he had to learn to give people, and his mom's constantly changing wigs and clothes, he just sort of accepted the information he was given. Every time one of the bodyguards or family members vanished, what did she tell him?
Oh, they went to college.
So at one point, he actually says, "Why does this family have so many people in college?"
They didn't even say goodbye.
I would
He doesn't write. He doesn't
start
call. He's in
speculating.
college.
I start speculating. Well, Manuel has always been a nurturing type, so we told him to go for his nursing degree. I mean, he's only 47 years old. Plus, he looks great in white. You know, how did Ricardo get into college? Just last week, I was teaching him English from my I Can Read books. Yes, he's going to major in English, so he'll be super good at it. Yeah.
So after her arrest, it became clear that she had arranged over 200 assassinations. At one point, her son goes to see her in jail because he's going to get some answers after all these years.
Mr. Naive.
When she told him repeatedly when he wanted to go play outside. She never said no. She just said, not today, tomorrow. But she said it every day, which I thought was really mean. But she never admitted to orchestrating the assassination of his father that he witnessed as a child. They were together in a car. Never mind, possibly endangering her own child, who very well could have been plugged full of holes in the crossfire. No. Why would I be mad at him for kidnapping you and taking you to a third world country and threatening that I would never see you again and for calling a fat sow ear? Ugh. Nah, why would I be mad? No, you know what? I think it's time for dear old dad to get his master's degree. But if a guy, like one of their bodyguards, came to dinner and brought his gun,
Sets his gun on his-
then he gets bitch slapped. Nobody goes to my table packing an unsticky, awful, greasy gun. Totally ruins the family vibe. But no, I didn't kill your dad.
When he went to go see his mom in prison, I was expecting her on the phone to say to him, "No, mijo, you misunderstood them. I was responsible for over 200 donations, not assassinations. It was donations to charities and needy families, mainly cat trees and doilies that I needed. Now finish your milk and go home." Okay, well, sounds good to me. So,
And he said at the very end that he forgave her for everything.
so I decided to write some jokes. The youth of today will not have any frame of reference for this, but it used to be back in the 70s and 80s when a movie, like a big movie like Jaws or Empire Strikes Back or whatever, got converted to TV movie. They chopped it up for tons of commercials and they had to edit some of the cuss words out of it, because it was TV.
Or the stuff that wasn't very politically correct or
Right.
or
So it
possibly
seemed
could
like
be offensive.
it seemed like they had 5 minutes to do it too, because they like we talked about weird science. They didn't want to say in the family jewel, so he says in the flipping gizzard. That's not a phrase. I mean, they just really did a shitty job of editing. So this piece is called "For the Love of Bad Censorship." Right. Now I've been watching. I went back. You ever watch Kojak?
Yeah.
I went back and watched some of the old Kojak. Oh my God, the stuff that guy would say was so great. This one episode, he walks in. This is like 1972 or something. He walks into this crowded police station. Cops are like typing away on typewriters. And he just walks up to this guy's desk, takes his coffee, and says, "Hey, fatso, I owe you a nickel." And he takes a drink of the coffee and he goes, "Ugh, never mind, we're even." Puts it back. I mean, who just walks up and takes somebody's coffee? So I'm picturing police arrive at this horrific crime scene. The entire family was covered in blankets and anchored to the bottom of the swimming pool. That's how they're found, right? So Kojak assesses the scene, lights up a cigarette, and remarks, "I guess he wasn't a fan of Mom's plunging neckline."
But
Right.
you can't say that on TV.
So what it would really say is, "Golly, what nice deck chairs." An engaged couple is visiting with a woman that offers dove releasing for big events. Dove releasing, hence the doves behind us. She goes over the price list with them and how it works. She mentions that to get them more comfortable with the process, she has a few older practice doves at her apartment. If the couple are interested, they can free some, get used to it. So the husband turns to the wife and says, "Do you want to free some over at her apartment?" The fiance says, "I thought your days as a swinger were over." But in 1982, it would have been, the wife would say, "Homing pigeons are my favorite."
And their lips never ever matched up to the overdubbing.
Just
of
like
course.
that. Yeah. You want to take the next one?
Terry Garfield wasn't a rampant drunk driver, but he would occasionally make the trek out to the liquor store if he depleted his reserves. He was always super careful. He had to drive with a buzz, coming to complete stops at stop signs, maintaining the speed limit, etc.
We've all been there. Yeah.
However, driving hungover,
Same here.
he was the total opposite, head in his hands, drifting from lane to lane. A cop pulled him over for reckless driving and said, "Sir, driving like that, you're lucky you didn't wrap your car around a tree." Terry replied, "Yeah, but at least then I could get some sleep."
Can't say that. So instead, we'll say what?
"Thanks for the advice, officer. What a nice man."
Much more politically correct. And the last one is Alan. This is my favorite one. Alan, a young neighbor, came to the door one day to ask if little Sonia could come out to play. He mentioned to her mom that he'd often seen her in her room and wondered why she didn't come outside more. Her mom is this grizzled old bitch with a cigarette hanging out of her mouth. She says, "Absolutely not. Don't you know she's a mongoloid?" Alan looks her right in the eye and says, "Ma'am, I don't have a problem with space rocks." But that's not cool to say, so we will just say, "Mom, I'm just attracted to her inner beauty." Anyway, we haven't done a Seussical in a while.
No, we have not.
And sometimes these little gems just fall into your lap. Right now, we're going through hell trying to get our medicine because we had a change of insurance. So this Seussical is just called Inhaler.
Yeah, it's really weird to me that you can do so much online with pharmacies, but you cannot update your health insurance coverage. Nope.
Okay, here we go. Me. Bring it up at a party and answers will vary. What are some things that are incredibly scary? Forget giant bats or Boris the spider. We had to get a new health insurance provider. Oh, it wasn't our choice. No, not at all. Our employer threw us an enormous curveball. We loved our old pharmacy, all please and thank yous, but they saw the new cards and dropped us like a deuce. In our new pharmacy, I felt like a foreigner. There was a big Lebowski dude fast asleep in the corner. The floor was littered with stains, trash, and ants. And why was everyone wearing sweatpants? The pharmacist, though, was quite down to earth, but he asked me 5 times for my date of birth. Getting our medicine was a cakewalk, you know. Now it's easier to get tickets to a Taylor Swift show. So take care of yourself, and if you get sick, we hope that your health care is easy and quick. We've spent so long standing in line, I want to get my inhaler by 2029. Nailed it. So let's play a song. Why don't you introduce it?
This is Exiled Hope with Blood of the Ancients.
Okay, let's talk about imperfect foods.
So, especially on a snowy, horrible day like this,
Yeah.
or pre-snow when everyone runs to the grocery store and stands in line and fights over packs of meat, you could have your groceries delivered right to your door.
You ever get behind somebody who's writing a check? I
God.
threw a loaf of bread at a guy once.
Or searching for
He
the...
goes, wait a minute, I've got coupons. Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
did you just hit me with bread? Yes. Anyway,
So you might ask us, what can you get from Imperfect? What can you get delivered? And they also have a lot of ingredients that, not ingredients, they have a lot of products that for whatever reason would not have made it to the shelves because of some imperfection. So that would have wasted carbon and water. So you are indeed saving the planet. So
now,
grab some of the things we got in our box.
like any fascinating YouTube channel, we're going to show you off our half-eaten food.
I know we always get into this. These are toffee. These are broken toffee almonds. Believe me, you will never care that they are broken. These are crack.
Crack is whack, but these are great. Yeah.
Yep. They were undesirable because these almonds had irregular shapes.
After the Microsoft Edge thing, I said crack is whack in two different scenarios. Look at that.
Look at that. So
Hashtag
yeah,
Whitney Houston.
you have to stash these away from your sweet tooth. They
Yeah.
are so freaking good.
Yep.
So also, and partially eaten snacks because we can. Chocolate covered everything is always one of our favorites.
I didn't know that was in there.
Yeah,
That might be why it's still here.
this is a little bit of everything that kind of would have gone to waste. You're not gonna care. It's covered in chocolate. Just put it in your mouth. Eat it. Dark chocolate covered cherries.
Why didn't we have those?
Oh yeah. So these cherries were deemed undesirable because of their irregular size. So they would have been sad and gone to waste, but you can eat them and they're delicious and they're covered in chocolate.
Cherry looks like Jimmy Carter. We can't serve this.
They also have things like Overstock from brands that you might know. I got some diced mangoes. These are Del Monte. But again, maybe they had too many or it was near the sell-by date. So you can get them for cheap. They also have things you can make lunches with. This is Imperfect's own brand of sliced provolone and uncured beef pastrami. How often do you see this? So without the nitrates. So make yourself up a nice little sandwich there.
Yeah.
Produce, we got them. I'm not going to juggle because I can't. But this week we got some great oranges. They might have had some discoloration, but peel them, they're fine.
I mean, look at that pear. The oranges are nice too.
Cheeses. This is also open. Truffle cheddar cheese.
Dug up by Indian pigs.
Possibly. This is a habanero cheddar. So
I can't believe that's still there.
They have
I must have been very controlling myself last night.
They got lots of great artisan cheeses too. Again, this all comes to your door. Even need stuff to make dinner. They have some 100% grass-fed ground beef. And this is also the Imperfect Foods brand, and it's all sealed up for you. So use our link, and you too can skip the insanity at the food store, which the one by us, I always come back with some kind of tale of some crazy person who accosted me in the aisles and asked me about the best deal on paper towels or something.
Yep.
So use our link. It will save you $20 off your first order.
Okay. Good one this week, folks. We dove into the Lizzie catalog a little further. This is Thin Lizzie's 1976 record, Johnny the Fox. Lynott and crew continue to drop legendary discs at a furious pace. Johnny the Fox is one of two records that were released in 1976. This and Jailbreak came out a few months later. They used to do stuff like that back then. It's filled to the brim with stories of heroes and battles, chicks and booze, struggle and swagger. It was written and recorded quickly after a whirlwind of shows with Journey, Rush, Styx, and others.
Just take a second to listen to the cut Massacre that we're going to play for you now. It is what would become Maiden, Metallica. It's the band crossing into heavy metal magic.
Absolutely. So check out Massacre. Okay, continuing on with our review of Johnny the Fox. Go ahead, babe.
The quality is incredible, considering how fast this band was moving. Borderline is majestic and introspective. Classic Phil Lynott. Don't Believe a Word is a quick and dirty axe attack, overflowing with harmonies from Gorham and Robertson. Johnny the Fox meets Jimmy the Weed is uber funky. That main riff, a lesson in pure 70s swashbuckling guitar. Fool's Gold has a Van Morrison vibe. The syncopation of the vocal is almost overwhelmed.
It's almost too much when he goes, just near the part where the beautiful dancing tightrope ballerina. I don't know how he gets it in there, but he somehow it fits all those syllables in there. And it just, he walks the tightrope, comes out unscathed, setting the stage for one of Gorham's best melodic solos. It's great. The Lizzie machine was just purring along at this point, firing on all cylinders. Unfortunately, the U.S. tour would be hampered by an incident with jackass Brian Robertson slashing his hand in a bar fight with Frankie Miller's band. It wouldn't be long until such incidents led to his replacement. But at any rate, Johnny the Fox, fantastic record. Let's hear Don't Believe a Word.
We've come down to our great interview with Sofia. What a lovely young lady, brimming with talent. Obviously, creative like some of us. So we totally get her. Really intelligent. Her music is phenomenal. We had a great time talking with her. Learned a little.
She's got a lot going on.
So here's our interview with Sofia. Yeah, I always try to like dress for you, so you were a hard one. So I went with like opera top, black metal bottom. How about
That's awesome. I appreciate it. It looks really good.
I have been known to dye my hair like the album cover, but I didn't have time this time.
That's true.
That's fun. I had the underside of my hair dyed red for a little bit just because it was fun, but dye gets everywhere and it fries your hair, as you probably know. And so I had a lot of damaged hair that's been growing out since then, and I don't know if I'm gonna dye it again because I don't want to damage it or get dye all over everything. So I don't know. It's fun in concept, but like, you know.
Yeah, our bathroom has red spots I'm still trying to get out.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
We're just gonna repaint. It'll be fun.
So before, I guess we'll start with this one. Are you from Maryland originally, or are you just here visiting, or?
This is a long story. I am a military kid. My dad was in the Navy for 20 years, and so we moved around a lot. The longest place that I stayed in was actually Hawaii. So I lived in Hawaii for 15 years, and then I graduated high school there, and then my dad got a job at a naval base in Maryland, and so we moved to Maryland, and that's how I ended up there. I'm there now. On winter break from law school, and then I attended undergrad in Florida at Rollins College in Winter Park, and then I graduated from there in 2022, and I started attending law school in Virginia in the fall of 2022. So that's kind of the story of me being everywhere all at once.
Yeah,
we're right here in Baltimore, and I think the only other Maryland musician we ever interviewed was from Clutch. So.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah, I'm actually not like super familiar with Maryland because I only live here for like, I don't know, a month, 3 months at a time, given like breaks from school and things like that. So I don't think I've ever properly been to Baltimore. So
gotcha.
The Metal Archives has you claimed as Maryland. I was like, that's really not super specific.
Yeah. I mean, I'm from Southern Maryland. Well, I'm in Southern Maryland. I don't know if I would call myself from here. Yeah. Metal Archives also has one of my collaborators, Metal Matt, listed as from the US. He is not. He's from the UK. So if you saw that on Metal Archives and you're listening to this now, that's wrong. Yeah. No,
so trying to appeal bad information on Metal Archives is not easy.
Yeah. No, it's not.
So I am a huge fan, as anybody knows, of a blended sound. Yeah. From In This Moment to As Everything Unfolds to Hell Freaks to, Unprocessed to You, but I was really impressed with the fact that you actually mold all this together, the piano, the hard parts, it's the blast beats, the riffs, And you throw in this whole opera thing. So I think that makes you super unique. What do you
thank
think
you.
is the trend that is making all these blends pop out?
I don't know, and I feel like it's been going on for a couple of years. One of my favorite bands is Avantasia, and they're a metal opera that brings together like different artists from all kinds of the entire spectrum of rock and metal, from like classic rock to newer bands, newer artists. And then there's also Camelot, who've been around for decades, but Camelot is one of those bands that just keeps evolving their sound. They started with a very sort of classic power metal sound, and now they're kind of getting hints of like electronic and symphonic, and Within Temptation is kind of doing the same thing too.
Right.
So I feel like it's just with people seeing how these bands are evolving, they kind of start to want to incorporate all those elements. They're like, okay, if these huge bands can evolve this way, then I can start this way and it won't be too jarring. So that's kind of the way that I perceive this happening. It's honestly not a huge it's not a trend that I really thought about until until I started listening to the new Camelot album that came out earlier this year. Probably my album of the year. I'm a huge Camelot fan. And I was like, oh, they have done a remarkable job at keeping what makes them Camelot while also evolving their sound in a very natural way that makes sense for them. I mean, I'm sure a lot of Camelot fans will disagree with me here, but that's that's what I hear personally. And yeah, there are a lot of other like newer bands. I'm a huge fan of Wintersea and Seven Spires. And they do an awesome job of like combining progressive metal and melodeath, black metal influences all together into really ethereal soundscapes. So yeah, I think a lot of people are noticing the evolution of older bands and they're like, oh, we can just take this and put it into our present sound as it stands.
Yeah, nothing attracts me more than when it's light and dark and
I know, me too. That's the whole appeal of like Wintersea and Seven Spires in particular, because they do such a great job at like making part of a song very ethereal sounding, and then they just slam you with the heaviness, and it's like, it just blends so well, but those two sounds are so diametrically opposed to each other in a way. So
and you do a really good job of mixing it up too. The first song I ever heard, I forget which one, but it was like, I was like, Hammers of Misfortune. This is like that chaotic. But the next one, I was like, no, this is more like Oriad. So you do a great job of putting a lot of variety in. So I think that makes it all your own.
thank you.
What can you remember like the first like heavy music that you were kind of drawn into?
I was in middle school, like I think I was probably 12 years old. I was super, super into Ozzy Osbourne. And actually, his guitarist, Randy Rhoads, was probably the first musician who like introduced me to guitar. So I started guitar at like 12 years old by learning Randy Rhoads songs. And I think the first song that I learned in full was Mr. Crowley. And that was just my crowning achievement as like a 13-year-old, being able to play those solos and stuff like that.
Wow.
I just kind of threw myself into the deep end because I was like, I want to learn how to play like this. And so I just started listening to all the old Ozzy stuff. I was also really into Led Zeppelin as a kid, probably. I think I might have discovered them earlier than Ozzy. I think I was probably 11 when I discovered Led Zeppelin and just Jimmy Page's guitar style. Led Zeppelin is another band that I feel doesn't get enough credit for blending sounds. Like all of their albums are a little bit different, and each song on that album has kind of its own feel. So that may have been my earliest introduction to that. Just yeah, so I think that covers like the earliest exposures to heavy music.
You're much more ambitious than me. I remember being very excited that I could play an entire Ramones album from front to back.
That's
I was
awesome.
showing all my roommates. But yeah, Randy Rhoads does a lot trickier stuff. Yeah.
Well, now that you say that, I mean, you can definitely hear that in your riffs. 'Cause I was like, how did she learn to riff like that?
Yeah.
Now I get it.
Thanks.
So I kind of gathered that the name Exiled Hope comes from your character Hope, and she's somehow exiled, which makes sense. But what's her backstory? What's this secret that the city's like?
Yeah, so the backstory is she's just kind of your average young woman in like a sort of medieval fantasy sort of setting, and she hears that like the city elites are planning to like enslave a huge portion of the town in order to in exchange for demonic powers and things like that, all sorts of evil stuff. And so she gathers her like band of misfits together, and they run around trying to spread the word. And then of course, you know, the city hears about it and comes after them, and they run off into the wilderness and form an army and start trying to fight. And that's kind of how that plays
Wow.
out in the first album. It doesn't end well for them in the first album, and then the story unfolds across the next few records and sort of comes back together to finish that saga. That's actually what I'm planning for album 4, which I'm writing right now. Album 3 isn't out yet, but I'm always making new things because it's the way that I just process what I'm feeling in abstract terms. I'm always putting ideas together, even if they're not going to come out for a while. So I'm rambling a lot. Does that make sense?
No, it makes
No,
sense. It
no,
does.
that definitely makes sense.
Before we forget, you always need to have an angle for your merch.
God.
And if you have your own craft beer, you have got to call it Exiled Hops. So there you go. So if you ever have your own beer,
That's awesome.
there it is.
Thanks for the idea. I don't
Yes,
drink.
there you
so I'll
go.
keep it in
Yeah.
mind.
You can go ahead and copyright that. I know you like the copyright. It's all yours.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you know, when you were talking about that, you know, and I was reading kind of more a little about the story, I was like, she should make a little graphic novel
I
too. or
want to. I really want to. I used to be super into drawing, but I can't like draw on a computer, and it would take me forever to be able to put all of this together. So a graphic novel is definitely going to be happening at some point. That's just something I want to do.
It's really cool.
Yeah, although when I was reading about everything you're involved in, I'm like, she didn't have time for
Yeah,
any
you
of
have a
it.
lot going on. Yeah.
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 So I was like, just a few things.
Yeah.
Just a couple. The important stuff.
So I noticed, you know, you're super into like, you know, getting artists aware of, obviously with your law school background, about
Yeah.
copyrights and this and that. What is the biggest mistake that bands make legally? Is there like one big rookie mistake?
Are you talking about bands or just like individual artists?
Just either.
Either, yeah.
I think for bands, the biggest mistake is just letting their egos get in the way and not respecting their bandmates' creative contributions. Because it sounds very cheesy and very cliche to like don't let your ego get in the way. But I mean, honestly, it's true for legal matters, because a lot of bands will come to like verbal agreements with their bandmates saying, hey, we agree that we're going to operate this way. If the band dissolves, this is kind of what we're going to do, but we don't have to worry about that because we're friends. So even if you think that you're best friends and that nothing is ever going to go wrong between you, people change. So it's great to, from the beginning, have a band agreement that lays out your the specifics of how you're going to work together, like who owns the logo if the band dissolves, who has the power to hire and fire different band members, who has most of the songwriting duties, and who is going to be credited in different ways for songwriting, how royalties are going to be split up, and who's going to like be making the biggest decisions for the band. Do those need to be unanimous? Do you need to come to a majority vote? Is that decision going to be made by one person? And when people don't think about these things and their egos inevitably get in the way and they start not respecting each other's contributions to the band creatively, they're going to end up fighting over all of these things, because the band is going to start to dissolve, and then they're not going to have this framework that a written band agreement would provide for navigating those disputes. So if you're going to start a band, no matter who it's with, if it's with your best friends or with total strangers, you need to have a band agreement drafted by an attorney who is experienced in the music industry to make sure that you're covering all those contingencies that you might encounter. So that's probably the foundational to every band. Have that band agreement drafted by a music attorney who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, I guess the starkest example of that was in the early 2000s when all the hair metal bands started suing each other. were there like 3 versions of Rat and 4 versions of Saxon and whatever else. And,
LA Gun.
and LA Guns, and nobody could perform, and everybody was like, "No, I'm the real. No, he's the real."
Yeah, if they had band agreements, they would say, okay, this person is going to own the name, and if
Right.
they leave the band, they take the name with them.
I guess nobody thought they were ever going to make that much money.
Yeah, no one ever does, and then when they do, it becomes a problem because they
Right,
were
exactly,
not
yeah.
prepared for those
Yeah.
things. So
You know-
no matter how big or how small you are, get everything in writing.
Yeah.
Even, our friend Blaine Cook from, The Accused, there's one guy that they played with that they haven't played with for 20 plus years.
Hmm.
And they had to change their name because of him to still perform. They don't make a ton of money, and this guy is still going after them like constantly.
Yeah.
It's like, and now, like you said, there's no resolve because there's no contract.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And then for like individual artists, I would say the biggest mistake they make is not having a music attorney read their contracts. Because we at the law firm that I work at, we have people coming to us who just sign things without reading them, and then we need to get them out of whatever deal they signed, and sometimes that's impossible. So definitely read everything that you're going to sign, have an attorney read it and interpret it for you, because if you go into that not knowing what you're signing, you're going to regret it inevitably.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like in my other job, I deal with a lot of contracts, and it seems like the smaller the company, the more the owner will just be like, "Yep, 93 pages. Sounds good. Let's get started." And when that happens, literally, we all go, "Fuck," because they didn't read it. And when we start to enforce it, they're going to go, "Oh, well, no, we can't do that."
Yeah.
Like we want them to read it. We want them to redline it. We want to argue because then we know they'll take it seriously. You know what I mean? So,
Exactly. And like, honestly, the draw of transactional law to me is that it's about making the deal work. It's not about beating the other side into the ground. It's about coming to some sort of consensus that everyone agrees to that benefits both sides in the most balanced, fair way possible. So,
yeah, my corporate attorney will say things to me like, "They actually read it."
a lot of people don't.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. Right.
Yeah.
So I was a little confused at first because when I first looked at your Spotify, I thought, oh, she only does singles, single.
No.
But when I got into your Bandcamp, I'm like,
Yeah.
there are albums. I'm so dumb. Why do you have some things that are just available on Bandcamp and not on Spotify? Like that first Exiled Hope, you kind of have to piecemeal it.
Yeah. So the first album, the production sucks. I'm just gonna say that. It was I recorded that and produced it before I had any idea what I was doing with regards to production and like recording style. So that's only on Bandcamp because it's an essential part of the discography and the storyline. It's where everything began. I love it. I love the songwriting on it. I don't love the performances as much. I could do a lot better now. But it's only on Bandcamp because I feel like if you're gonna put something on Spotify, it needs to be high quality. And I just felt, even back then, I felt like I don't know if I'm quite there yet. I'm gonna do a soft release on Bandcamp and leave it there, see if people like it, and if it really takes off, then I might put it on Spotify, but if it doesn't, it's gonna stay on Bandcamp. So that's the reason for the split. I'm thinking about re-recording some of those songs because I do still really love the compositions, the lyrics, just the overall feeling of those songs, but I just feel like it's production-wise not quite Spotify worthy.
Yeah, sometimes I wish I could redo a couple of our early podcasts and it sounded like we were in a tin can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really
bad. Yeah.
So I loved it. It looks like you're trying to put together this album. How do you say it?
Apocrypha.
Apocrypha. I always put the emphasis on the wrong syllable. But I love the track Over For You, your most recent one. I love how the themes keep circling back to as long as you're fighting, you're winning.
Yep.
Is that kind of like your personal feeling about things or the way you put yourself out there? Because that's a great positive way to have.
Yeah, and really it kind of coalesced in law school because, that's kind of this is the end of the line educationally for me. I'm just gonna, go out into the workforce after this, hopefully stay with my current law firm and with C Squared as a publicist. And so just this whole attitude of, you just gotta get through it, and as long as you're fighting, you're winning, that kind of comes from, I don't know how much you know about how law school works, but in law school, your final exam is 100% of your grade, and you're graded on a curve against your classmates.
Wow.
So you have to beat other people to do better, essentially. And it's a very competitive environment, and you're surrounded by a lot of people who, even though you're all getting the same degree, there are a lot of people who are really gunning for those like top paid corporate law positions, those top paid big law firm positions. Like big law is a thing that people are going for. And for the longest time, even now, I just kind of felt like an outsider there because I don't have the same goals as everyone else. I really love the small law firm work that I do as a law clerk for this current firm in the music industry, which is, that's a lot of people don't even realize that music law and entertainment law are an option. They don't realize that those exist. So yeah, it's a different sort of environment from what I'm used to. Like a lot of people will think, oh, law school is just an extension of undergrad. It's just another step. It's not. It is entirely its own thing in terms of the atmosphere. It feels similar enough to college that you may think, oh, I can come in here and just ace everything because it's just like being in college. It's not. So I just feel, like a little fish in a big pond, essentially, in law school. And I just have to keep reminding myself that, I did something that a lot of people are not able to do. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to sound cocky here, but not everyone gets into law school. A lot of people apply, a lot of people don't get in. It's a huge goal for a lot of people, but they don't always make it happen. So there's the very fact that I'm here is the product of a lot of hard work that I put in. And now it doesn't matter if I'm at the top of the class or at the very bottom, as long as I graduate, as long as I get that degree, pass the bar exam, I'm going to become a lawyer, and I'm going to be able to do what I enjoy doing for work, which is advising musicians on their legal and business issues. So as long as I'm here, as long as I keep going and keep working toward it, that's really all that matters at the end of the day, whether I'm at the top or at the bottom of the class. So
I think you'll do well because you're also a musician. So I think people would throw 100% of their trust into
Right, exactly.
you.
Yeah, it gives you a lot of credibility too. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're probably-
that's the goal, to like be a lawyer who deeply understands the music industry because I'm in it. And that's kind of the lawyer that I work for. He's like that too. He worked in A&R at a label for the longest time. He was a manager for the longest time and still is a manager for a couple of artists. And so he deeply understands the music industry from that perspective too. And I understand the music industry from the artist's perspective. So I feel like together we bring these perspectives together to our clients, and we help them understand the solutions that are available to them from a more holistic standpoint.
You can show your check from Spotify to your clients. Look, 13 cents.
13
I'm just
cents.
like you, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think you're going to have a waiting room. Looks like Better Call Saul, except it's going to be all rock stars.
It's gonna be all rock stars. Yeah, very cool. Yeah.
Just tell them, take a number. I also like, that your album covers are all kind of like nods to like classic art. And
They are classic art a lot. The one for Overview
Wow.
is like 500 years old.
That's great. Yeah.
Even down to the use of your term Leviathan. I mean, nobody says that anymore. But it could be like an analogy for like a powerful enemy. In your opinion, what is the biggest enemy we see here in these modern times?
Generally, or
Yeah.
like music industry wise?
Either.
I think honestly, it's people assuming the worst from each other and not communicating. That's how a lot of legal issues start, and it's how a lot of personal issues start, obviously. I feel like more and more people are just kind of going through their lives just busy, 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 and they're not really taking the time to connect with each other. They're not taking the time to understand each other. Like everyone has their own struggles and everyone has things that they are working against that they may not even realize they're working against. And a lot of people will just assume, like, oh, say if you don't respond to them right away through text, they'll assume, oh, you hate me or you must have something against me because you're not talking to me, whatever. It's like, no, I have a busy life and a lot of people that I'm trying to stay connected to, and I don't always have the time to get to everything that I want to in a day. And it's not personal against you. So I feel like if more people took things a little bit less personally and had more empathy for what other people in their lives may be going through, and just understanding that we're all trying our best, we're all, trying to work together on things, and it doesn't always work out. Just don't automatically assume the worst of people. Assume that, whatever they're going through, it's their own personal struggle, and it doesn't necessarily have something to do with you. And the best thing that you can do for people in those situations is be stable for them, be someone that they can trust and feel safe with. Because I feel like that's what a lot of people need these days, is just that feeling of stability and safety. And the more that you can be there for them like that as a friend and show up for them as that source of stability and confidence, then that's really all they need. And they'll put their hackles down, they'll put their guard down, they'll stop lashing out at you because they realize, hey, you understand and you're not holding this against me. Which is, I'm not saying go ahead and tolerate toxic behavior, but if you know someone who is dealing with a lot and they are, and it seems like they might be attacking you or lashing out at you, just it's probably not personal.
I will say that as a cranky old man, I did actually get a thrill every time we turned down a holiday party this year. So you do get to a certain stage in life where you're like, yes, another party we're not going to go to.
I'm a
That's
huge
just me.
introvert. I know I almost never go to parties, so I understand.
Declining is so fun for me personally.
So much fun.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it's the joy of missing out. Instead of FOMO, it's JOMO. I get to
more people I don't have to be around. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like how you talked about kind of like your escape is into the woods, and finding peace in nature.
Very
and
black metal.
solitude.
It's very black.
Oh yeah, very.
It is very black metal. I pretty much every day over winter break, I've been wandering around the woods outside my house, just taking pictures and putting them on my Instagram story with like an atmospheric black metal song in the background, just something edgy like that. It's a lot of fun.
So I was reading, we did there's this, well, she's from Italian, Marth, she does this black metal, and she would walk through the woods and kind of get her muses. And she went into an abandoned house and started, doing the vocal fry and screaming to kind of get her vocals down. Somebody called the police.
That's funny.
They thought she was like getting murdered.
Tortured.
Oh no.
Don't do that. So there's a tip.
No.
So I also liked the video you shot. It looked like quite a while ago. Your hair was much shorter for the witches night.
Witches night, yeah.
Did you do that right around in the woods where you normally walk?
Yeah, that's all right there. I don't have a lot in terms of resources to create videos, so that was I did some of the footage, and then the rest of it was put together as a gift from a friend that a collaborator that I frequently work with who makes short films. So he was actually in charge of a lot of that, and we just kind of put it together as a fun little project. But yeah, it was all just right there outside in the woods.
It turned out well. I love the glimmer effect, and it kind of looks like there's almost like a specter up ahead.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Do you have a particular muse that will stimulate your ideas more than others, or is it a lot of what you do sounds like stuff I dream weirdly at night?
A lot of it does come from dreams. The song Dreamwalker is about like I will often have dreams. This is gonna sound so weird. I often have dreams from other people's perspectives. So like I'll be in the head of like a character in my dream, and I will experience the dream from the perspective of another person who is not me. And so Dreamwalker is actually about one of those experiences where like I'm in the character of another person, and then I wake up and I'm like, who are you? I want to get to know you more. And a lot of the characters that I write my songs about are people that whose lives I dream through, essentially. That sounds so strange, but that's how it works in my head.
Do you have a name for this universe where Hope is from? Or is it a town or a city or?
A couple of friends and I started a Dungeons and Dragons campaign centered around the album lore. We've kind of abandoned it because law school is a lot. But we had a Discord channel where we started like putting together ideas for it, and like creating the world essentially. I can't remember the name of it or if we even had a name, but it's very inspired by the Witcher series.
We love that show.
The soundtrack to The Witcher 3 is one of my favorite soundtracks of all time, as you can probably hear in my music. And so a lot of it is based on like that sort of Celtic setting. A lot of it is kind of based on settings in like Ireland and Scotland, the UK. A lot of it's very medieval fantasy. It's got that sort of feel. So it doesn't have a name, but it has a very distinctive character.
So another question for you, legally related. Are you going to ever be able to have ink? Do you have ink, or is that like just not in the cards for you?
Ink?
Tattoos.
You know, tattoos.
Oh, I can if I wanted to. Probably
Because I know it's very corporate, you know, when your line of work is very corporate, you know.
Yeah, it's very corporate. A lot of people do have tattoos, but I think they need to be able to hide them. So
Okay.
yeah.
So that's where it is.
That's
Because I know, like, I think lawyers and banks are kind of the last frontier for the tattoos. You know, that's still very conservative. Yeah.
It's kind of sad and it's not gonna like impact me as much because the work that I do is transactional, so I don't have to like go to a courtroom and argue in front of a judge.
Okay.
No one really cares, honestly.
Okay, right.
If I were to show up with like a full sleeve, no one would bat an eye.
Yeah, in this day and age,
most likely.
Yeah.
But if I were to be doing actual like litigation as opposed to transactional work, they would probably ask me to cover up.
Although I think it's getting more and more mainstream. I was in the hospital for just a minor procedure that they had to put me out for. And as I'm standing there, everybody that goes back and forth in scrubs, doctors, nurses, they all, got tons of them. So I was
I
like,
think if it's not impacting your ability to do your work, which tattoos don't, then I honestly think just let it go. Let people express themselves. Let them get whatever tattoos they want, as long as they're not like offending people or yeah.
Would you sign your 401k over to a guy who had burn in hell right here on his neck? I mean, they're kind of the crux of the biscuit right there, you know. I mean,
I don't know. He's honest. I would definitely.
I'm okay with it. I'm full of ink. It'd be fine. But I think most people would probably hit the brakes right there.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where you have to know your audience, like based on the
Yeah.
industry that you're in.
For sure.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So you have a number of covers on your YouTube channel I was enjoying. I really liked The Circle with Me in Spirit. I love Spirit Box.
Thanks.
How do you choose what you do, or is it just like a favorite song of yours or something you think you can really do well?
So for just the vocal covers, I usually pick something that like I feel like I could kind of put my own spin on, that like it's something that I could do in, if I were a different type of artist, but that I feel like doesn't totally fit the Exiled Hope brand. So that tends to be how I choose those. Or if it's just a song that I like, that I feel like giving my own interpretation to, like I have a couple of Camelot and Avantasia covers on that channel, I think. And that's totally stuff that's in my wheelhouse musically. But I just felt like doing a little practice run, seeing how I could interpret it in my own way and bring some of that knowledge from doing that recording and doing that practicing to Exiled Hope. And the cover videos sort of end up being the end result of that of that experimentation. So yeah, that's generally how I choose those. And then for the like full length covers that I do like full instrumentation on, those tend to be things that are often in a different style from what I do, but that I feel would sound good in my style, and I want to push myself to try something different and do different interpretations of songs that are already out there. So yeah, it's sort of a different thought process for each type of cover, but it's all at the end of the day practice for me. That just
Have you
ends
ever
up.
abandoned one? Ever gone, well, that was a terrible idea. I can't hit that high note. Have you ever had that?
I did before I started taking vocal lessons. I took
Ah,
lessons from like I think 2021 to the middle of 2022, and boy, it changed everything. Um, well, a lot of people think music is about talent, and if you're either good at it or you're not, and that is absolutely not true. I do not have natural talent in singing. Everything that you hear currently from like I think Altar of Moloch on, that's the result of extensive training with a vocal coach. It's
that's
not natural at
interesting.
all. It's all learned. It's all something that you can develop. I mean, like if you want to start learning and you don't have natural talent, you're probably going to start down here, but you can work your way up to here. If you happen to have natural talent, you might start here and then work your way up to the same spot. Um, but at the end of the day, it just depends on how much work you put in. And anyone can learn to do anything. It's just a matter of having the proper training and the proper guidance.
Yeah, we were interviewing this one artist, and she had gone to like, music college. And I was
Mhm.
surprised to learn there was like growly vocals 101, fry scream
Oh
102.
yeah,
I was like,
that's
wow,
right.
those are classes.
Yeah,
That's right.
But I guess how else you gonna learn, right?
yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
exactly.
So I was also surprised that you do soundtracks. I don't think she ever sleeps. But tell us about what happens after midnight and what kind of inspired you to get into score writing.
So ever since I was young, I think my earliest exposures to music were like Disney movies where the characters sing and stuff. And so from an early age, I always associated music with storytelling. And like even when I was in like my preteen, like edgy preteen era, when I was only listening to classic rock and things like that, and I would like be listening to stuff on the radio in the car with my parents, and I'd be like, this is so shallow, this is so vapid, they're not telling any stories with their music, they're just kind of singing about breakups and stuff. Classic rock is so much better because they tell stories with their music, and so stuff that edgy kids think about. And so just from that age, just super early, I always associated music with storytelling. And when I listen to music still, I like imagine scenarios in my head with like different characters, saying different things to each other or like interacting in a certain way. So music is a very like visual experience for me in that way. And I had always like even before I got into metal, I think I wanted to do soundtrack work. And for most of my metal songs, I have versions of them that are like cinematic versions or orchestral versions, instrumentals that I hope to use those to appeal to like music supervisors and for use for sync licensing, things like that. So yeah, I just kind of that's always been in the back of my mind with Exiled Hope is the goal to get more sync licenses, get more opportunities to actually score films from the ground up. I'm also like a huge fan of video games like The Witcher 3 and Skyrim. The Skyrim soundtrack lives rent-free in my head constantly. And so a lot of those, in addition to metal, have inspired just my music for Exiled Hope. So when I have an opportunity to do a soundtrack, even if it's just for a tiny little YouTube project, I jump on it because that really was the foundation for Exiled Hope, that sort of cinematic experience that I try to create with the music. It's all based in what I enjoy about film scoring and video game soundtracks. Does that make
That's
sense?
awesome.
It was long.
You know, it does. It does. Yeah, your classic rock story reminded me. I remember when I was a teenager, I put Rush Xanadu in. I wanted to have my parents experience this music that I thought was so important.
Yeah.
And I was explaining to them about Kubla Khan and dining on honeydews. And my mom went, "Look, pools are us." They didn't give a shit.
I know. Yeah.
I was like, forget it. That's sort of
They
what your
don't
story
get it.
reminded me of.
They're not deep.
They're never going to get it. I went and got the encyclopedias and looked up Kubla Khan talk about geeking out. I mean, the books. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was back before Google.
Fuck before, yes. That was a pre-internet world, yes. So.
Well, like Mark will listen. He loves the Doom soundtrack, but he's never played the game. So he's got a shirt, and every now and then somebody will be like, "Oh, Doom!" Da, 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 da. He's like, "I don't play it."
Silent Hill, yeah. I like the soundtracks. I don't play video games. So everyone wants to engage me on the game. I don't know.
I'm actually very much the same way. Like, I like video games, but I don't have a good gaming system. I just never have for whatever reason. So I haven't actually played a lot of the games whose soundtracks I sing praises for endlessly. So really, to me, it's the music first, and then the context in which the music is played. So.
Yeah.
All right. So we play a little game on our show. Don't be frightened.
Sure.
It's 5 random questions with Stace. That's me. I have 100 questions in front of me, and you're going to pick 5 numbers and answer 5 random questions. So pick between 1 and 100, 5 numbers.
4. And let's see. 12. 35. 36. 47.
5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got it.
We have to keep changing the 6/6s and the 7/7s, and because that's what the bands always pick, So.
That's funny. 4. I kind of consider 4 to be my lucky number, so a lot of those are like 4 or multiples of 4 somehow.
Number 4. What is your favorite type of food?
I really like steak and eggs and potatoes. So that's probably my favorite dinner right there.
I make some killer hash browns. I learned how to make hash browns out of a potato. It's super easy. You just need a cheese grater.
I learned how to make my own French fries recently. So like you cut a potato into like little tiny slices, and then you cover it in coconut oil or olive oil or something, and then you just put it in an oven and you bake them, and then you end up with French fries. It's really cool.
You gotta put Old Bay on them too.
That sounds like good. What's the new thing we got?
The air fryer.
Air fryer. That sounds like good air fryer fare also.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
12. If you inherited a chocolate factory, what would you do with it?
That must be one of my questions.
I feel like there are a lot of like business and investment opportunities. I would probably like open it up to tourism or something like that. Just turn it into a giant money-making machine, and like not just sell chocolate, but like use it to sell any kind of chocolate that you could think of. And I would probably have, do the whole Willy Wonka thing. I think that's a great idea.
Could have your own Exiled Hope chocolate.
You're so fun. I'd be like, are we OSHA compliant? Let's start there.
Yeah, I would be that person. I would be like, wait, we can't do exactly.
I know, but that's not a rock and roll answer. So,
All right. 35. What is the farthest you have ever had to run, whether for fun or not fun?
I used to be super into running, so I think like the farthest I've run consecutively, this is going to be so sad to anyone who actually runs seriously, but probably 2 miles, farthest I've run consecutively. Yeah.
I've run marathons. I don't recommend it.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I would never do it again. Never. I've never come out of one not hurt.
You were both runners, and when she tells me about her marathons, I'm like, ugh.
I'm more of a weightlifter these days. Like, I don't know, running kind of ended up hurting my joints a little, so I started going for something more low impact, but still, putting stress on your bones so I don't lose my bones when I get older.
I always like it at the gym when I'm struggling with a weight and a female just picks it up and casually throws it aside. That's always a big ego blast for me.
It's really fun.
That's great. I'd be like, I can help you with. Oh, you don't need help with that. Yeah.
All right, number 36. What do you look forward to every day?
Right now, probably my walks and like getting outside. I really love just being outside in nature, and just taking walks and taking pictures of birds and trees and stuff like that. So probably getting fresh air and, you know, going on my little wanders through the wilderness. I also look forward to listening to music every day. So that might be my basic answer to that.
Number 47. In a zombie apocalypse, what would you make from your household items to fashion a weapon?
I really like swords, as you can probably tell from the whole medieval fantasy theme that I have. So I would probably make some sort of sword or like a club, something that like has multiple blades sticking out of it that I could just kind of hack around and hit zombies with and like
Decapitation.
yeah.
Mhm.
Or I
Isaac.
might end up like making some sort of mustard gas sort of thing that like destroys the zombies because it eats them. So,
That's a very good answer. Yeah, that's a very good
I was
answer.
like Shaun of the Dead, where he's just killing them with 33s, just
yeah,
launching
just
them.
just make like a mustard gas grenade or something like that and throw it at the zombies.
That's awesome. So another collaboration. How did you come to collaborate with the Steelforge from the UK
Oh my
for
God,
the Realm of the Exile?
this is such a fun story. So I have been following Steelforge probably since 2019. I think I stumbled upon them pretty randomly. I find most of my music on YouTube, so I was just kind of doing my YouTube browsing and I discovered Steelforge and I listened to them and I was like, oh, this is so cool. This is exactly the kind of music that I want to make. And this happened before I really put Exiled Hope into high gear. I was still kind of composing and playing around with Logic and my instruments and kind of figuring out how to write my own songs. And so I heard Steelforge and I was like, this is so cool. This is basically what I want to do, but in a slightly different context. So it's a great basis for what would eventually become the first Exiled Hope album. And so I just had been listening to them for the longest time. And then I eventually noticed that they had made an Instagram account. And so I followed the Instagram account and I was liking their posts and leaving comments and engaging with them. And then their vocalist sent me a DM saying, hey, we're looking for a guitarist. And we really like the videos that you're posting and the music you're putting out. This is in 2022, so this is years after I initially discovered them. And so he sent me that DM saying like, would you be interested in being our new guitarist? Because we're looking for a guitarist. And I was like, I would love to, but I'm not in the UK. I'm across the pond. And so but from there I was like, I still really want to figure out a way that we can work together because I've been a huge fan of your work for a couple of years now, and I've been following you since 2019, so it's been a while. And he just said, "Hey, yeah, we can totally do this. You can." And I think the collaboration started out as like I was writing songs for them. So I was kind of at first a hired songwriter essentially, and then we kind of developed it into an actual collaboration because we thought it'd be cool to like bring both of our projects together because we both sort of have this medieval fantasy conceptual thing going on. And so yeah, I think that is how that started. It was DMs on Instagram, as most things start with me.
Yeah, there's so much good that comes from that. I mean, we hear that a lot when we interview artists. That's how they found the guy that did their artwork. That's how they came to collaborate. There's a lot of good in social media.
Yeah.
We all know there's some bad. There's a friend of mine, and you know what? He and I argue about it all the time. He's like, he hates it because he says when he painted the Sistine Chapel, he didn't leave a section where people could shit all over it in the corner. That's what the comments are. And I'm like, all right, dude, you need some decaf. I mean, come on, yeah, ignore the comments if you don't like them. I feel like there's way more. I get way more out of social media than I dislike about it. I mean, a lot of
Yeah,
it's
I
like
mean,
stuff like you just said. I mean, it's just
I have my gripes with social media, but honestly, without it, I would not be doing what I'm doing. I would not have found my legal job without social media, because the
right,
way I
right.
found that was I just followed this attorney for a couple of years since like the middle of undergrad, and then I sent him a DM saying, "Hey, I'm interested in learning more about what you do. Can we set up a time to talk?" And we set up a time to talk, and he offered me a job. So,
Yeah.
I
Like,
mean,
if someone posts a comment and says the last show was funnier, I'm not gonna go commit suicide. I mean, come on, I'm like, whatever,
you have to understand when you're on social media that the mean comments that people will leave are ultimately them just being bored, and
Yeah,
it's not about you. It may seem like it's directed at you because it's in your comment section,
right,
but it's not about you. It's about them being insecure
right.
and just
Totally, yeah.
being stupid and not knowing what they're talking about.
I think it's
I got a lot of hate for the album art for the summoning because Emperor used the same art, but here's the thing. If an artwork has been out for like over 100 years and it's been, I think copyright lasts for like the life of the creator plus 70 years or something like that, and it may have changed recently, but
spoken like a true attorney. Absolutely.
but so that piece of art, Gustave Doré's Death on a Pale Horse, is old. It's it's
Yeah,
probably like over 150 years old at this point. And
yeah.
the fact that Emperor used it does not mean that I can't also use it, because
Right, exactly.
the underlying piece of art is in public domain. So anyone can use it without, having Emperor doesn't own it because they decided to use it for their art. So
Right.
I got a lot of hate on social media just because I decided to use the same piece of art.
No, those emperor guys are so, they're all living in their mom's basement. Don't listen to them. Ridiculous.
And the only reason I like acknowledged any of those comments was because I can't appear to be ignorant on copyright law because I'm studying to be a music attorney. So,
Right, right.
yeah.
You're like, look, I know Bugs Bunny made this joke back in 1942, but I nailed it this time. So you guys can all go to hell. That's also public domain.
Speaking of
Uh,
cover art, I love the one for the Realm of the Exiled. It looks like an executioner, like a Grim
Yeah.
Reaper. That girl, that spellcasting girl on the front, to me looks suspiciously like you. Did you have someone do that?
That's right. You showed me that. Yeah, I thought the same thing.
I didn't have a lot of involvement in that artwork. That was actually something that Danny and I commissioned for the project, because I felt like because it was a collaboration, I didn't just want to do my usual thing of finding some really cool piece of public domain art and then using that. I wanted to make it more special, like more of a collaborative effort. So we both commissioned an artist to do the artwork for Realm of the Exiled, and I guess he decided to make the main character look like me for some reason. But I think the other character is Steel Forge's Forger, who is sort of their version of Hope in their conceptual universe. And then there's another character that I think is Karen, the guy who ferries people into the underworld. So yeah, that's the story behind that.
Mm.
I kind of go back and forth between like wanting to continue using these classic pieces of art that already speak to people, because I feel like it's just another way that I can let my nerdiness out and use something that already appeals to people to get them interested in what I do and sort of develop that mental connection. I do think at some point it would be fun to like commission someone or use something that's already out there, but for now, I kind of that there's so much cool stuff that's already out there that has a lot of meaning ingrained into it because it's so old. So
yeah,
that's kind of why I've been leaning more in that direction.
I really liked, I subscribed to your newsletter that
Thank you.
You kind of just struck a chord with me, and you're like, writing is an emotional necessity for me. And I feel that because, just writing is, how would you explain that to like a non-creative person, that feeling?
It's kind of like not breathing. Like, so for the first semester of law school, like 3 months, I did not touch my guitar because I was terrible at time management and I didn't know what I was doing because law school is so different from undergrad. I didn't do music during those first 3 months, and I felt like I'd lost myself. Like I just was miserable for a lot of reasons because, law school being what it is. But essentially, I just felt like I had lost part of myself in that, and like I was just becoming part of this machine that the legal field can be at times for creative people.
Right. I'm sure you met up with people that said things like, well, you're not getting paid to do that. Why would you do that? They can't fathom why you would do anything that you're not making money on.
Yeah,
Understanding like it's about flow and creativity and
yeah, it's just about experimenting and getting things out there and making something. I feel like humans, whether you're artistic or not, have an innate drive to create things. Like, and oftentimes these are things that like last longer than them. Like if you have a family, you had that innate drive to create that legacy. If you have, if you're an artist, you have that innate drive to create that expression of yourself and leave a piece of yourself with the universe. So, not thinking to do that or not having the time to do that for 3 months was just horrible. And I started the next semester thinking I'm never going to do that again. That was the worst decision I could have made. And I just have made a conscious decision since then to carve out like 30 minutes of my day every day to just practice or work on a song or like work on a cover. I mean, it's essential so that I feel like myself.
Yeah.
Have you ever performed live?
Given that I'm more on the sync licensing and like film scoring side of the music industry, I don't intend to perform any of my material live, but I've performed live for other people, just in small settings. Like my dad's friends have a local band here that I've played lead guitar for on a couple of occasions. They just invited me up on stage, and they told me to bring my gear, and I just kind of got up and improvised some leads for them based on the key of the song, the chord progressions they were using. And then in high school, I played classical guitar at church for the church choir, and just that was I think that may have been like my first real live performance, was just classical guitar in a church setting.
Yeah, I'd loved it, because when we talked to John from Black Braid, he said the same thing as beginning. He's a solo guy. He didn't want to take it on the road.
It's kind of a pain, like having to get other people and teach them my material that I often just improvise because it's my way of brain dumping. I don't actually remember a lot of the material that I create, honestly, like chord progression wise and scales wise, because it's an experiment for me. I just decide that I like a certain idea that I have, or something comes to me and I just play with it until I make it work and make it sound good, and then I just leave it because it's out there, it's done, I'm done playing with that idea, and I want to move on to something else. So yeah, I don't think that I will ever perform that material live just because of the nature of how my brain works.
You should go back and watch, because you're a classic rock fan, go back and watch documentaries about bands like Chicago and ELO, where they had 3 oboe players and 5 trumpet players, and they drug them all out on the road, and 3 saxophone players, and there was no synthesizing that music, and somehow they got it done, like.
Yeah, Epica did that fairly recently. I feel like Epica does that a lot, actually. They'll like bring a full orchestra on the road.
Yeah.
It's really cool, but I don't know, that would need to be like a super special occasion if I were to do
You
that.
can synthesize most of that now. They just couldn't back then. They had to have the actual saxophone guy there. Yeah.
I wouldn't rule it out, because he said he didn't want to find 5 dudes, but there they just did like a huge tour. So who knows?
You never know. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're also in a folk metal band?
We just started that. It's not like anything huge right now, but I have a friend who plays like 30 different instruments. We met on Instagram, coming back to our social media discussion.
Right.
And he just like we had been talking about making music together for a while. If you I don't know if you saw my cover of I Wish I Had an Angel, but he's playing guitar on that cover. Um and so just he's an amazing musician and he's awesome, but for whatever reason we just had never gotten around to doing anything together. And recently we got like both of us got invited to collaborate on a song with another folk artist. And then my friend was like, "Oh, well, maybe we should sort of form our own collaboration project." And that can be how like we're credited on the song. And so we started talking about just forming our own folk metal band that we should have formed a while ago, but probably we're not ready for skill wise. But now I think we can actually take it somewhere. So yeah, I'm really excited to see where this goes. He has a lot of songs ready in his back catalog that he's been working on and tweaking for a couple of years now. And so I think he's finally ready to give those to me to do guitar and vocals on. So yeah, we're just kind of gonna put our ideas together and see where that goes. I don't know when our first release is going to happen, and I don't really know what the trajectory of that project is, but yeah, just keep following and see what we do, because if when we release something it's going to sound vaguely like Exiled Hope but also not because of the distinct folk metal bend. So yeah.
Well, I see great things for you. You know, we once had a mayor of Baltimore, Martin O'Malley, and he had a folk metal band. So
Really?
Yeah.
he did. He used to play.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep. It was a while ago, but
Yeah.
it happened. Well, anyway, we'll keep a close eye on you. So excited to see, because it looked like you didn't know what was coming out next exact in order, but you got a lot on tap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot coming this year, and I just need to figure out when it's all coming out. So, because a lot of this stuff I started in like 2021 or 2022, and now it's just all finally coming down the pipeline and it's all ready to be released. So there's not really a whole lot of like actual work to be done on those anymore, aside from like scheduling and putting together promotional materials and making sure that everything gets adequate like airtime in the, adequate promotional time. So
Well, just remember Exiled Hops. Okay, don't forget that. I mean,
Falling on deaf ears.
Deaf Ears 1 is Flapjack. The album is called Sugar Free. Why don't you take it, love?
Polish new metal. Where else would you go to learn about these guys? This six-piece known as Flapjack have been banging out their signature blend of crossover
Crossover flaps.
This six-piece known as Flapjack have been banging out their signature crossover thrash and new metal for the better part of 2 decades at this point. And the latest album, Sugar Free, sounds like it. 2 guitarists, 2 vocalists, and a lot of attitude push these 14 relatively short songs to hit with maximum impact. If you're looking for sick grooves, great riffs, and obnoxious yet memorable choruses, you have come to the right place with this one. I mean, take a look at the cover art, sucker. See what I did there? The guitar tandem of Robert Litsa Friedrich and Maciek Rons are the core of the Flapjack sound, tearing things up hardcore style 1 minute and bouncing along on a hip-hop infused groove in the next, one middle finger in the air, anthem after another.
Yeah, I couldn't stop listening to this thing this week. It grabbed me right away from the track GRIP, which is a song dedicated to the former singer Guzik that died tragically in 2021. And it grew so hard, I think I threw my back out. I was also a big fan of the Thrasher Cocksucker Boss, a song that reminded me a lot of a friend of ours named Brad. Hi, Brad. Particularly the line, "I've spit in your sandwich and dipped my dick in your coffee." Poetry, people. The strongest cut on the album may be Don't Look Down, which is built on a hard-charging riff and earnest lyrics about keeping life's problems in perspective. So what if your boss cut up a corpse and is serving it to your neighbors in an empanada? The important thing is not to go to pieces when that happens. At any rate, this thing is stacked with bangers and needs to be added to your favorite playlist ASAP, you punk ass bitch. This is Shotgun.
Deaf Ears 2. This is Sprints, Letter to Self. After an algorithm-pleasing series of singles, EP, a live album, and a compilation of their early work from 2019 to 2021, Sprints, a four-piece labeled by many garage punk straight out of Dublin, offered their debut LP, Letters to Self. There is so much more going on here. One can't simply slap that garage noise genre on them and walk away dusting their hands off. Their music is like a freshly poured Guinness draft. So many singular bubbles rushing to the surface all at once, creating that sense of motion and chaos, but building a cohesive feel all at once.
There are no sleepers on this release. Every song has more hooks than a meat locker with varying styles and... No. There are no sleepers on this release. Every song has more hooks than a meat locker with varying styles and tempos full of pop sensibilities sprinkled throughout. Take the opening track, Ticking. It starts with the drums of Jack Callan acting alone, echoey pulsing along, before a hailstorm-like guitar with climbing, vibrating tremor of Colm O'Reilly joins in. Carla Chubb's vocals are monotone at first, full of Chrissie Hynde's alto disdain. The guys join in the chant, maybe I should cut my hair off, as an industrial whine that somehow Sam McCann provides with his bass rises in tone, furthering the urgency. The tone falls off as the song settles into a rolling groove of tight drumming, surf melodic guitar, bass continuing to work up the scales. By now, Carla's vocals have become more like Siouxsie-style wail. This isn't your mom's punk rock.
Heavy is another one that you will be singing along and dancing around the kitchen to halfway through the first listen. This time, the guitar styling is all stiff little fingers fuzzy. Carla is the queen of inflection. The pause between her counting 1, 2, 3 turns infectious right away. When she gets to a secondary layered vocal repetition of, did you ever feel the room is heavy? Her slowed down variation on the word heavy changes the meaning. The way changing the inflection on the word dude can completely change the connotation. A soaring guitar solo over much more intense tension-inducing drums, and Carla's wail feels unrequited near the end.
The lyrical theme that runs through every song is that of feeling not good enough, being judged for who you are, what you look like, and other preconceived notions that can just be so damaging to self-esteem. The disdain at a left-handed compliment is evident in Up-and-Comer. You can feel the contempt in the vocals. She's good for an up-and-comer. The song starts with fuzz-filled riffs with a tormented sing-along melody over the top, before the whole thing speeds up like dangerously close to spinning out of control, holding together somehow, harkening back to something like Drive Like Jehu circa 1994.
A Wreck is a similar straight-up post-punk style burner. Shadow of a Doubt starts off all U2 double tremolo guitar picking, but with a bit more plodding feel added by O'Reilly. Chubb delivers a more emotionally charged performance here. When she sings the word lost, it is intentionally discordant with almost a question mark at the end to invoke this disorienting sense of disarray.
As if they haven't shown us all they've got up their sleeves, the closing track, Letter Itself, starts off with an industrial-style noise taken over by squalling guitar. As they dip into near-new metal-style aggression, Carla laments, voice cracking, I gave it all, but you were never happy. It all falls away in the middle, with vocals and riffs standing alone before that heavy returns.
With the 11 tracks that run, plod, smack, and groove by in 39 minutes and 39 seconds, presented in glorious Irish take-it-or-leave-it style, I am in the former camp, queuing it up once again. With this solid punk backbone, pop, and never sparing the metal styling, I think Carla and the gang is going to have to count the accolades that will pile up around the world, much higher than 1, 2, 3.
Okay, let's play a song. This is Up-and-Comer. Deaf Ears 3 is Lucifer's latest album, Lucifer 5. How time flies for the rock obsessed. It seems like only yesterday that Mr. Prolific Nick Anderson was starting up his new garage rock moniker, the curiously named Imperial State Electric. Somehow, in the blink of an eye, he's released 7 full-length albums with the Electric Company, met and married the luscious Joanna Claudia Sadonis, and plugged into her band Lucifer. It's now 2024, and the female-fronted occult hard rock four-piece are on the verge of their 5th album, Lucifer 5. At this point, we know just what kind of goodies are in store. Songs milling mostly around the 3 to 4 minute range, memorable choruses, lyrics about graveyards, the occasional organ line, and cracking good riffs and solos the way they used to make them back in the bitchin' years.
This is a bona fide guitar bonanza of an album, which is not something normally associated with goth or doom metal. That is what makes this band so distinctive. It is not surprising considering the 3-guitar lineup, the way they attack these songs.
April Wine.
Take the Skinnerd-informed double-stop bonanza that kicks off The Dead Don't Speak, settling into a doomy sort of stomp that culminates in a near-perfect transition from sultry vocal to ripping solo, concise and perfectly crafted. Sadonis Anderson has developed into a proper rock goddess, delivering a chill bump inducing Chrissy Hynde style vocals for the death waltz of Slow Dance in a Crypt. Any woman willing to pose crucified for an album cover is bound to see her stock rise, you know?
Yep.
Subtle details are not lost on us. At the Mortuary throws in a few lines from Johnny Thunders' You Can't Put Your Arms Around the Memory.
Yep.
The whole thing culminates in the dramatic shuffle of Nothing Left to Lose But My Life, a track that has it all. Soaring vocals, creepy lyrics, surging solos, aggressive drum fills, pure candle wax on the nipples for fun for the whole family.
Yep, that about says it all, folks. Let's play Immaculate Heart. Well, that was fun. We talked about drywall workers, power tool envy.
We talked about them not being impressed by accounting skills when, you can paint on stilts.
Yeah. We talked about the fact that I'm never going to get my inhaler and how shitty and ghetto Microsoft Edge is.
This has been the Snaggletooth Rock and Roll Podcast. Special thanks to Sofia from Exiled Hope for appearing on the show. Snaggletooth theme, courtesy of Jens Kemgren of the Firebombs. Deaf Ears theme by Tim Green of the Fucking Champs. Season 3 artwork, courtesy of KC Angel. You can find his work on Instagram at KC Angel Art. Deaf Ears bands, get over there and check them out, as well as Exiled Hope, Lucifer, Flapjack, and Sprints. All content 2024, the Snaggletooth Rock and Roll Podcast.
Who cares if the oranges look like Margaret Thatcher? They're still yummy.
This is the Snaggletooth Rock and Roll Podcast.